Okay, so the final weekend of pool matches at the Women's Rugby World Cup have now got underway with Canada beating Scotland 40 points to 19 out at Sandy Park in Exeter. It was 19-5 at half time to Canada, who were not at their best in this match, if we're being honest. And I think there was a period in the first half around the Scotland try and just after where Canada were looking a bit shaky. They were looking a bit shaky for a good period in that first half, and at one point in the first half, Scotland had 60% possession, so Canada were really not at their best. They weren't at their best in this game. The yellow card, I think, is a major turning point. And it is a yellow card. That Scotland cannot argue that. That was midway through the first half, and Scotland had been playing really well up to this point. The game was close. Canada, after dominating the arm wrestle in the territory in that first 10 minutes and getting that opening try after 12 minutes through Hunt and McKinley Hunt's try, Scotland then the momentum swings the other way, and they were encamped down in Canada's end of the field in the 22. Rona Lloyd gets the try in 22 minutes. And it is at this point where Canada are wobbling a little bit. They're starting to be a little bit ill-disciplined. The scrum isn't working. Now, Scotland can't take advantage of all this pressure that they've had. They've had a lengthy spell down in the Canadian 22, and they had multiple opportunities where they just forced the play, handling errors, just getting things slightly wrong. And eventually Canada just get a grip on the game again, and the Evie Gallagher yellow card, I think, is a major turning point because, well, she's off the field, 2 tries are scored. Now, they say it's cynical play, and yes, it is. She's not onside. She hasn't come through the back foot at the ruck. She's come through the side and basically tackled the player playing scrum half, coming into that position to pick up the ball. She's played the player in the scrum half role, who I think was a forward at the time, but could it have been a penalty try there and then? It's a debatable one whether it could have been. There were enough Scottish players around that could have potentially stopped the Canadians doing a pick and drive over the line. But the yellow card is given. That was on 31 minutes. Now, Canada could have kicked for the posts. They decided to go for a scrum because they've got an advantage in that area. And this is where their 2 tries with that yellow card come from. Because they get a penalty try from that resulting scrum. They just shunt Scotland backwards. Scotland collapse it. It wheels, and the referees gives them a penalty try in 32 minutes. Now, Emily Tatosi's first try also comes off a scrum and phases off ball off a scrum, and it's because they put their Thompson, the inside centre, into the scrum to bolster it so it doesn't get shunted backwards. And because you've now tied up an outside back in the scrum, basically first phase off the scrum 2 minutes later, where your inside centre channel defensively would be, you've got a gap, and Tatosi gets her first try in 34 minutes. And it's that yellow card period that I think has actually won the game for Canada, because the second half was very to and fro. There was no... Canada weren't fully settled in this game. They were unsettled. Evie Gallagher, who's been obviously sin-binned, her try, I mean, should the Canadians be tackling a bit better there? That was on 51 minutes. And the momentum swings are there. Now, Tatosi gets her second try very shortly afterwards, and all the Canadian tries were by forwards, so the forward pack off the bench and the starting 8 have done a great job. That was on 57 minutes. And that's the bonus point. Now, bonus points, unless we're going for a head-to-head in regards to winning and losing bonus points, and if Scotland had, let's say, it been a tie, for example, bonus points could have proven crucial, as would points for and against, points scored and points conceded, for who finishes first and who finishes second out of the pool. Now, they've got the bonus point. Now, Helen Nelson, this is a technical infringement. The actual set play of being cheeky off the line out and deliberately throwing it long for the fly half to run onto it. Okay, we have seen that done before. However, before the line out was even fully completed, Helen Nelson's begun her run, which means she's now in an offside position. You have to be back 10 until the referee says line out complete, where it's either been passed out or it's gone into a maul. The hooker is still throwing the ball in when Helen Nelson starts her run. Now, she goes over. It looks quite easy, looks well done. TMO's like, hang on a second, I think we've got an offside here. and Helen Nelson is stood too far forward and also starts her run too early, so she's offside. It's a technical infringement. Otherwise, that would have been a well-worked first phase off line-out ball, which has unlocked a Canadian defence that looked a little bit suspect today. They weren't in the same intensity that they have been in the previous games. Now, admittedly, you could argue the opposition, the first two matches in the pool, Wales and Fiji, are of a lower standard, potentially, although Wales, Scotland are quite close in standard. But then, following that disallowed try, they go up the other end, and Castle gets her try to 64 minutes, and then Demarchment would round up the scoring right at the end. But McGee gets her try in 75 minutes in between the Castle and Demarchment tries. Now, I do think that disallowed try and that yellow card have definitely impacted the game. If Helen Nelson holds her run and times it right and starts her run at the right time as well, we could be looking at a completely different result had they been a little bit more disciplined in that first half on their try line. You could argue Canada should have had a team warning for the amount of penalties at scrum time and in open play they were giving away at that point. You could argue that. You could also argue the referee should have been a bit stricter around the scrum, but then by the end the scrum was in Canada's favour, so it evened itself out there. But early on in that first half, Canada were infringing at scrum time. You could argue Canada should have had a team warning for repeat infringements. In saying that, once that cynical play had happened where Eva Gallagher's given a yellow, Scotland's discipline went a little bit as well. They lost their focus towards the end of that first half, and it's that 10-minute period that I think's won the game for Canada. Plus, the disallowed try has also been a momentum swing because in the second half, both sides were going try for try at that point, and continue to go try for try throughout the second half. But if that try stands, that I think again would be a momentum swing. But it's a technical infringement. Looking at the game, Canada not at their best, but they had enough to beat Scotland 40 points to 19. Scotland were in this game, and it's almost about execution and timing on things, and making sure when you do get a penalty and you do kick it to touch. They did miss a couple of them. There was a few technical timing errors where when they got the ball, they weren't quite getting things right. They also got disrupted with a couple of HIAs as well, which impacted them a little bit and led to reshuffling at times. And once the substitutions were used, Canada's bench was stronger, especially in the forward pack, where they eventually got dominance and their scrum settled, and Scotland's scrum was getting shunted backwards. But both Canada and Scotland are through to the quarterfinals, and it's all about who finishes on top of which pool, really. Now for all four pools. The big game of the day is England-Australia, which is the last game of the day in Pool A. That's the big game of the day. But Canada-Scotland's done. The US are playing Samoa right now, and then we've got Fiji-Wales. But with the timings of all the games, weekend 2 and weekend 3, pool stages, you can't watch two games at the same time. It's damn near impossible. So I'm cherry-picking the pool matches that I'll be watching. I'll be watching England-Australia. That looks like a lot of fun. Canada, one of the favourites. They were tested today. They're going to have to play better, I think, if they're to win the World Cup. And I think they will. I think they will review this one and be very disappointed with their performance, even with a good 21-point win. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comments section below, and I'll have some more content for you all very, very soon.